Welcome to Face, Cred.
Hello, Dale. How are you doing?
Great. So nice to meet you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know crypto action's been hot and heavy, and before we get to the charts, the present, and maybe into the future, a glance into the future, I'd like us to throttle back and tell us what your entree was into the business at, the beginning of your journey as a trader.
Sure, Dale. Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. I've actually been following the guys in the live streams for quite a few months now, which will make sense in a second. So my sort of foray into trading, technical analysis, markets was actually through crypto to start off with, and that was in around the summer of last year, when we had some sort of contentious debates within the community about the direction in which the technology should go. The crypto listeners will know this as the sort of hard fork debate. And
Right.
when it was all over the news about how the network should behave and so on. And that's when I really took an interest in Bitcoin. I sort of did some freelance work on the internet that I was paid for in Bitcoin in the past, but nothing really I paid attention to, certainly not on a market technical level. And then my friend just linked me a webinar, a bit like this one. And he said, hey, these guys are going to talk about all these coins. You should go check it out. And being excited as I was, I entered that live stream, and they were doing something like this, Dale. They had all these charts, all these fibs, trend lines, horizontals, every indicator under the sun. And I just thought, and they were discussing it in such a sort of fluent and fluid way. I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I really want to sort of be able to speak that language. And that's where it started, and the rest is history, so to speak.
I see that you went the other way. You're trading naked here. So you have none of those indicators that you spoke about. Everyone looking for the holy grail that doesn't exist, huh, Cred?
That's right, Dale. I agree with you completely. And it's something, it's almost an inverse relationship. The more proficient and experienced I got with markets, the fewer indicators I used over time. The most you'll catch me doing is a bit of RSI or perhaps OBV from time to time, but mostly the candlesticks tell their own story.
Okay, so you trade naked, so I hope you do it with your shades drawn.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the
oh,
police has been
okay.
around a couple times about that.
So, okay, Cred, so we had that hack on Sunday night, and washed out about a month or two of the market trying to stabilize, and there's probably a lot of despondency here now that we're about to test the Feb lows. I don't think we got there yet. What's your take on this? And I was watching, I watched CNBC sometimes even with the volume on, and and they bring they bring crypto guys in that every week. Yeah, it's a great buying opportunity long term. It's a great buying opportunity long term. In the meantime, short term, if you're leveraged at all, you're taking serious losses. So, is there ever a good time to sell crypto?
There is a good time to sell crypto, as we can see from the chart, right? I'm sure the sellers from this run up were a lot happier than the sellers from these lows, right? And I'd agree with your general skepticism of CNBC. If someone is able to give very accurate and consistent calls on where an asset is going, it's unlikely they'll go on TV and just chat about it to the masses, right? So totally with you on that.
So what's your outlook here? Are we near the capitulation stage in Bitcoin? Are you, like I think maybe a lot of professionals now, that maybe the small guys and the retailers are getting wiped out because they use too much leverage and they're forced out on margin calls? Are you looking for some type of climax that could end up being a good entry on the long side here?
Sure. And I agree with your comments about leverage, especially. So a lot of crypto traders like altcoins a lot, the alternate cryptocurrencies which trade on these exchanges. And since altcoins have been, for a while, at least on the way down, were quite flat and didn't have the type of returns that we saw in the summer of 2017, people instead went towards Bitcoin leverage trading, seeking the same returns or yields, and very much to their own demise, as you pointed out.
Are the altcoins as collateral damage to what's happening in the let's call them majors like Bitcoin,
Sure.
Ethereum, and
I would
Litecoin?
say so, yeah. From the data I've seen, they're very closely correlated. So it's a type
Okay,
of thing where a lot of, especially recently, if you, for example, are bullish on Bitcoin, there's a reasonably good chance that you can also open longs on your altcoin positions, and then vice versa as well. So the correlation has been there, providing ample trading opportunities if you get the big picture right, Dale.
okay. Are you a believer in altcoins at the right time? And do you follow ICOs? And how do you know if it's not a scam?
Sure. I think it's reasonable to have a presumption that most ICOs you buy are either a scam or won't be around in a number of years, right?
Okay.
It's no surprise that most of these projects wouldn't raise a penny going through traditional sort of venture capital or whatever means of funding they'd go through. And it's just more the cryptomania that makes raising money very easy. But that doesn't mean you can't make money trading altcoins. Right. The difference being that I primarily use altcoins as a means to an end, and that end is to accumulate more Bitcoin. So they are certainly tradable. The good ones, or the popular ones, do have enough volume to make them tradable as well. But my personal interest is, of course, on the big daddy, the Bitcoin.
Okay. So I've noticed though on the Big Daddy compared to Ethereum, Ethereum has a little more constructive pattern. And also, I believe more dollar volume is flowing into Ethereum over the course of the last several months, and it's starting to gain a little bit of market share on Bitcoin. Is there a more positive story? Is a chart? I believe, some the price action has a message of fundamentals in it. Ethereum acting better than Bitcoin. Why don't we start with what you're looking for in Bitcoin, and then if you would like to, we can move to Ethereum.
Yeah, happily, Dale. So interestingly enough, for Bitcoin analysis, I'm going to actually take us back to March/April, if you don't mind. Right?
Okay.
So the way I sort of look at it is, once we had this, whatever you want to call this type of structure, double top, let's use that because it's popular and well known. Once we started getting rejected from it and started breaking down, I always ask myself the question, where was the range low formed, or where did price find support? I would posit that the answer to that question was at this low here, right? Some viewers might be thinking, well, wasn't there some support found sort of in this area? But as you can see, we only had one up day here, and then it still formed a swing high and sold off, right? So for me, the real area of support that we found was at this range low, denoted by the red line. Okay.
Interesting.
As you can see, price rallied away from it, and then we had this clean break of this range low, and then it acted as resistance and price was below it, right? And let's ignore this for now.
So it's like your pivot point, and then when it got back above it, you had a nice little pop.
That's right. That's right.
Like a false breakdown. Exactly. Or you could call it a false breakdown. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And if you look at the sort of fractal or price pattern that took place, you see that at this time, without being privy to the subsequent price action, you're quite bearish if price then comes below this low, right? Because that's your range low that provided you support, and below that you're likely to be bearish. And the case for that is bolstered if we extend it a bit this way. You see you've got equal daily lows here, right? Where we know pockets of liquidity typically reside. So if we then go back,
like an FX trader.
Well, yeah, interestingly enough, Dale, a lot of my favorite tools and teachings and learnings have come from Forex traders, despite being raised in crypto, so to speak. And I found it exceptionally helpful. One of your guests, actually, I'm sure you remember Saeed Zaman, who came on. Yeah, so we hang out and chat a lot. And I picked up some great stuff.
The guy who taught Saeed is going to be with us tomorrow, Michael Huddleston.
Well, there it is. Yeah, I've also looked at some of his content as well. So it's a very small world here, Dale.
It is.
But regardless, looking at the price action here, we know that it's very likely that below these lows, unless they have a very sort of loose stop below the sort of proper low of 6K, we're going to have a lot of sellers below 7K. And so if we look at what price did, so it took out this low, and then naturally people would, and not unreasonably, be bearish, right? But if we sort of look at what price did, you can see that accumulated below this range low, right? So I'm going to just box it out to make it very clear. So price breaks below the range low, your retail traders or your average traders are going to get bearish, especially when it starts acting as resistance as it did here. But now we know that when you get a breakout, this really bullish candle here, right, took out previous day's low and closed well above it and absolutely wiped the trading range. At that stage, we know that this whole price action that we've boxed out was just a stop run or a deviation from this range low, right? So bearing that price pattern in mind, I'm going to take us to the current price action. So again, once we broke down, I mean, you can use any reference point, either these highs or, you know, a recent swing high. Where did price find like a proper pocket of support? Using the same sort of arguments, I would say that it was here, right? So we had a breakdown, price comes into it, forms a swing low, right? Or forms a low, and then we have a few up days, though nothing too impulsive or crazy.
Oh yeah, people were trying to call that a head and shoulders bottom, and
right.
And I said, you know, any market that gives you 3 days to buy a breakout, be skeptical.
That's right. I would agree with you completely. You don't really get that much time to catch the winners.
No, Mr. Market, if they're accommodating you, they just want more stops to build up. But okay, so here we are now.
So here we are now, and so bearing in mind what we just showed in the price action here, we can perhaps speculate on some similarities. So we're currently below this range low here, right? So we're below the red line as we were here, but more crucially, we've also taken out at this point all of the April's lows, right? So if I mark this out in a different color, you can see that the price action here, the lowest low we made, which was yesterday, took out the lowest low of the April consolidation. So we know with these clean stops of this consolidation that there's going to be, again, a lot of liquidity residing and a lot of sellers waiting below this low. So now,
you think they go for the grand prize, and that was the low back end? Yeah, that one.
This one, yeah. So this is the really interesting thing to me. So if it's indeed true that this move down was simply a stop run of the April lows, then that's confirmed if price then finds support above the previous range low, just like it did here, right?
So back over 70.40 tells you that you know, we have a rally that's going.
That's what I would say. That's what I would argue, Dale. So for me, the way I would argue is,
points. You know, you're very big on pivot points.
I am. Yeah, I think if you find out where your range is and where the market's going to turn, and with a higher time frame context of where is the liquidity residing or where does the market want to go, that can contextualize sort of a lot of the price action that you see. So if this type of structure happens, Dale, that we push up and find support above the previous range low, then just like this was a deviation to take out the sellers here, this would also be a deviation to take out the sellers below the April low. Now, the troubling thing at the moment, Dale, is we're not seeing that type of rejection, right? Typically, I like to see some sort of spike or some sort of argument or evidence that the sellers are the buyers at that stage are stepping in, and I'm simply not quite seeing it yet. So where are the next stops resting? Well, as you pointed out, the grand prize, if you will, the 6K low that we made in February, and we actually came, as you can see, very close to it anyway. So a lot of traders like to talk about confirmation. A lot of the time, if you push those traders to tell them what does confirmation actually mean, they won't have an answer for you. Whereas the way I look at things, it's quite clear that confirmation can take two forms. The one I'd be quite sure about is if we get back above 70.47 using the Bitfinex ticker here. That would suggest to me that this whole move down, so this whole price action here, was just a trap any stops or sellers below these lows, right? And that would be
what exchange, you know, there's a big debate, and I'm, you know, I'm a little leery of unregulated exchanges. Where do you feel comfortable parking a lot of money and keeping it there? Anywhere?
Right. In terms of exchanges, the answer is none, unfortunately, Dale. I think one of the benefits of the whole cryptocurrency thing is being the custodian of your own assets in the most secure way possible. So you get specific hardware wallets, which do a very good job. But no, I agree with you there. I'm not, especially because, you know, there's been precedent of exchanges being hacked. So I'm not a big fan of parking a lot of Bitcoin in exchanges, unless I'm, of course, trading it.
Great advice. If you're going to trade it, have a wallet.
That's right. And then, sorry, one more thing I'll mention about Bitcoin is I look at price horizontally most of the time, right? In terms of swing highs, swing lows, sort of stops, and just horizontal support resistance levels. But if there's a good trend line, I don't discriminate, right? So if we sort of map out something like this, right, without being too artistic about it, we can see that we have a really important trend line here on Bitcoin. And this trend line exists regardless of whether you draw it with sort of logarithmically or whether you draw it in a linear fashion. So as you can see, in November, this trend line sort of, that was the first touch, gave us support, second touch at the 6K low, third touch at the 6.5K low. And as you can see now, Dale, we've broken down below it. And when I say broken down, this isn't some wick or some poke or, some almost sort of test. We have a very impulsive, clean weekly break below this trend line. Right? And I'm a big fan of this trend line because it's been around for a while, 3 touches, and it's evenly spaced as well, right? As I said, I don't discriminate. So technically, anything until price can get above this trend line and do something like this, I don't know why it's giving me pyramid drawings, but I'm sure you understand what I'm getting at. Yeah. Until price can get back above this trend line, technically any engagement with it is shortable as a retest, right?
Okay, so if it was possible, the measured move off this formation and breakdown, I'd call it 20,000 to say 13,000. A $13,000 move from the breakdown would make Bitcoin negative 4,000.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
What do you think? People have to pay you to hold their wallet.
That's right. Yeah, you have to pay. But I don't know who you'd pay, but
serious. In a way, I'm serious. I mean, it measures it classically all the way down there. That's that's a $14,000, $13,000 formation.
Yes. It's a significant break for sure, and that also means that any retest is technically shortable unless price can then find support above it. Right? It's your basic maxim of it provided us really good long-term high time frame support, and now that it's been broken by a very sort of uncontentious candle, this is a break, and no matter how you draw it, then any retest is technically resistant.
Does it come in around 74.40 like your daily did to maybe have confluence between that line?
It depends where we actually, at which point we come back to it. But if it was quite quick, it's about $200 above my so-called confirmation.
Okay. All right.
Not a crazy amount. Yeah, exactly.
Close enough for government work.
But yeah, absolutely. And then downside targets, if the 6K low gets taken, I would hope to see one of two things. But even on the weekly time frame here, Dale, if we map out our April low and make a slightly thinner line to make it more visible, you can see that we're already starting to get some semblance of rejection on this weekly candle. Admittedly, it's only Thursday, so still some time for it to close. But on a much higher time frame basis, it would be quite bullish if price trades below the April lows, but then closes above them on this time frame. Meaning all the sellers below here are trapped, and price is finding support above it.
Like your style. So I noticed, I found you on Twitter, and I went to your link. And there's not a website, and I notice a lot of people are using it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? And you use what's called Telegram. And,
yeah, that's right.
And what do you have? You have a trading room, a chat. What do you have in there?
Sure, Dale. So yeah, there's no website. The couple things I do have is I have a Telegram, like a room. Now, it's not one where people can converse. It's kind of a one-man show where I essentially sort of post things and people can observe. So without commenting,
it's not interactive.
It's not, unfortunately.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And the benefit of that is, as I'm sure you've seen, Dale, the character limit on Twitter is unforgivingly low. So if I ever have any thoughts that I want to sort of really expand on and talk about something in price or something else, it's quite nice to have that platform without a character limit where I can go into more detail like I am here to make my thoughts clear.
Okay. Is it a membership service?
No,
is it free?
It's free. Yeah, it's free. The link is in my Twitter bio description. There's quite a few people in there, and sometimes I do stuff like, so-called exclusive live streams or webinars, but it's free access. It's not really that exclusive. You just have to be in the group.
Okay. Well, that's great how you're trying to help people out there. And I don't know about you, but if you have a community where it's interactive, you could learn a lot from others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
I have, yeah. Cryptocurrency Twitter is quite good at setting up its own little niches and communities. We use stuff like Discord as well, which is another type of chat voice program type thing. And I'm in a few of those where I have the opportunity to, exchange ideas and share insights with other really great guys and girls.
All right, I just want to clarify something. Earlier you said you were raised from a crypt or raised in crypto.
Yeah.
Because if you were raised from a crypt, you have to change your handle to Lazarus.
That's right. No, I haven't got any super challenging or entertaining childhood stories. I have to defer and say, unfortunately, it is the more boring, raised in sort of cryptocurrency trading. That's my real first exposure to markets. But
Yeah,
it's a mixed tale, because I was taught a lot by Forex traders, right? So a lot of the structures and stuff I learned was from traditional markets while trading this.
Yeah, well, your reputation precedes you here, Cred, because Ed Schaefer is saying Crypto Cred is a good presenter, gets into very good analysis, usable in any market. So please do bring him back often, as I like his analysis and methodology.
Thank you very much, Jan.
So you're out there helping people. And
trying my best, Dale.
That makes you my trading warrior brother, because it sounds like we have a mission of building up and edifying traders. And
absolutely, very happy to be in that privileged group.
Yeah. So why don't we wrap it with why don't I get a Nostra Cred from you, and it could be any instrument in the cryptocurrency universe. What are you looking at that might present a nice opportunity outside of the majors? Anything?
So, I mean, altcoins have been, they usually follow Ethereum to some extent, or they're very, everything's quite correlated at the moment.
Right.
If we take a look at Ethereum dollar, I think it's quite an interesting position right now. If we take a look at the daily time frame,
See, it's not even close to its April low. That's what I was talking about.
Right. Yeah, and there's, but it looks quite similar, doesn't it? That April low. They had the same kind of accumulation, clean lows. But yeah, as Bitcoin has already spiked those April lows, whereas Ethereum has not yet. But the specific price structure that I was looking at on Ethereum is, if we sort of map out these lows here, you can. I can even box it out to make it simple. So we can do something like this, right? You can see that. Price moved up from this consolidation, came back, retested, found support, retested, found support, but less so. But now we've had a clean break of that support structure, which isn't really great news, right? And especially if Bitcoin keeps tumbling, the chances of Ethereum sort of rallying up aren't so great, given the correlations at the moment. So, technically, the way I trade setups, this is shortable now that broken support has turned to resistance, with the invalidation level probably being, if you're sort of more aggressive, above this high. But then in terms of downside targets, if this continues in its fashion, strong support, flipped, and currently retesting, if you do get the expansion move down, which confirms that this is a sort of SR flip, I'd be looking at two areas. So one is obviously, retesting old highs. So this area here, denoted by the red line. This is just very, very straightforward stuff. But then if that fails to hold, and this is what we talked about earlier, just like on Bitcoin, we know that there's a lot of liquidity below these very clean April lows, right? So at the moment, I'm seeing a very significant break in structure on the Ethereum dollar chart on the daily time frame. And if this is a case of your classic support, 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 breakdown, retest, and you expect continuation, then I think we might be in for either close to 400 or sub $400 Ethereum. I really do think this is a pivotal level, as price has proved to us already. So that's something I'm eyeing on, aside from just Bitcoin.
What a great presentation. I'm really glad I reached out to you, Cred, and want to thank you for coming here and sharing. I love your method because it's simple. And and really keep it simple, stupid, KISS, right? Or I call it, if you ever saw the movie Forrest Gump,
I have.
Keep
of course.
Simple. Yeah, simple and powerful. So I really am glad to meet you, glad our paths cross, and
likewise, though.
You've really come a long way for someone having only done this a couple years, a year or two, and
thank you very much.
I hope that your words continue to edify the people that follow you, and you could follow Cred at Crypto Cred, and may pips rain down on you and everyone whose words you touch.
Thank you very much, Dale. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
All right. There you go, everyone. Follow Crypto Cred at Crypto Cred. Check them out on Telegram. And that's a wrap for us here on Thursday. See everyone for TGIF. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure ready for Friday after the Fed and the summit and the ECB. Looking forward to no big red events Friday, book squaring mainly. And most of all, guys, remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. See everyone tomorrow. Good hunting the rest of the day. You're very welcome, Alan. Adios. Thank you, team. Great job. See everyone tomorrow. Thanks again, Cred.
Thank you, Dale.